Hey guys, it's George. So I'm starting a new segment on YouTube. I'm going to be calling it Quick Tips. Basically, I'm going to be showing a small tip for different software, say Photoshop, Illustrator, Lightroom and stuff. I'm going to take one tool from those applications and just kind of show you why you should use them, or what they're for, what they're there for, and how to use them as well. So let's just get started. I'm hoping to do one every once in a while and kind of build up a large database of where people can come and reference each individual tool. So if you want to learn about this or if you want to learn about that, you can just go to these segments and go to that specific point where you don't have to go through a bunch of stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to start off this with smart objects in Adobe Photoshop. And I'm going to start off with the definition of what is a smart object. And according to Photoshop, according to Adobe, smart objects are layers that contain image data from raster or vector images, such as Photoshop or Illustrator files. Smart objects preserve an image's source content with all its original characteristics, enabling you to perform non-destructive editing to the layer. What does that actually mean? Well, basically, when you have a Photoshop file and you say you have another picture that you want to insert into your Photoshop file, you can bring it in, and if you bring it in as a smart object, you can alter it, you can apply effects, you can twist it around, and it won't affect your original image. Basically, it saves a copy of the original image within your file that you can always double click on it and go to that original copy. It'll make more sense once I start showing you. So let me get started. Okay guys, so I have this picture that I took of my dog Gizmo, right? And I like it. I've edited it now. I have all my additions, all my layers, all my adjustment layers and stuff to really kind of make it pop and zing and stuff. But now that I'm noticing it, I don't like what's on the screen, right? I want to replace that screen. So this is where smart objects are perfect for this kind of image. So let's say I think he's dreaming of him at the beach. So I have this other shot of Gizmo running at the beach, which I want to apply to his, say, screen right here. So you drag it in, it comes in really big, right? So now here's the key to smart objects. If you were to, say, use Command T to transform this image and scale it down, and let's say you're scaling it down and you're trying to find how it's going to fit in here, and let's say you mess up, right? Let's say you mess up. Oh, it didn't fit. So now you try it again, and you're trying to transform it, and you're trying, and you're trying, and you're trying, and you're trying. And the more you try, the more you're actually destroying this file. Basically, you're changing it, the pixels are going to get all crap, and eventually you'll get an image that just, you know, if you go up higher, now you start to see that loss of resolution where it starts to look all crusty and stuff. So that's what you don't want. Okay, so instead of bringing it in like that, if you now go back to that original image and you bring it in, and when you bring it in full size like this, you now hit Control and click on the layer, and you hit Convert to Smart Object, right? You hit Convert to Smart Object, you name it Dog on Beach. Now what it does is allows you to change it as much as you can make it this small, and then bring it all the way back up, and you won't lose any quality because it's always going back to that original file, right? So I can make it, so now I would place it in here, all right? I would place it in here, make sure I get it perfectly aligned in my corners of the screen, like this, and you know, it's on my screen. Now let's say I wanted to change the color of it. I mean, this is water, so I probably wouldn't, but let's let's say I wanted to change the color. Well, I could do it here, already skewed, or what I can do is I can double click on this smart object file, and it'll open up that original file again, basically, And any changes you make here, like for example, I'm just going to make it for this video's purpose, I'm going to make it green water, right? So now let's say I make green water and I hit save in this file, right? It will auto update here, right? So anything you make to that original file, it will auto update. Another thing is, let's say you don't like this image. Let's say you want a different image. And I wish I had an image available. All right, I have one here. Let's say you wanted to put an image of, let's say you want to put this image on there. This is my other dog, who has passed away, by the way. But instead of having to now re-import it, rescale it, and re-put it into this, you just drag it into here. Hopefully it would be the same size. But you just drag it into here, and you save the file that this is based off, and it will update. Now, that's just kind of an easy way of updating these smart objects. And you could do it all day long. You have this original file, you can take another picture. Well, let's say you want to go back to the original picture, and you hit save, and it'll update here. So it's just an easy way of keeping your file so it's non-destructive and updating stuff that you've already put into place. The other thing that's great about it is, let's say you duplicate it, and let's say you had another screen over here, and I'm just making this up, but let's say you had a second monitor, right? And you had the same image on the second monitor, right? So if you had to change it normally, you would come in, you would rescale it, you would change them both. Well, if they're smart objects and then they're same smart object, and you double click it and you change it. So now let's change this. I don't know, let's just make it yellow. It will update both of those smart objects because they're both based on the same smart object outside. So that's one kind of big use that I have for smart objects. The other big use is when you're doing photography and you have camera raw files. I'm going to open up this file. This is a file I took at the Grand Canyon, right? And let's say I'm going to do some raw editing to it, and I want to expose it for I know that if I overexpose the bottom, the sky is going to get blown out, but if I try to bring back the sky, the ground's going to get blown out, right? So let's just show you kind of what I mean. Let's say I'm just trying to lighten up the bottom part. I'm trying to lighten up the horizon, this part right here, the ground. And I'm going to warm it up a little bit, and maybe add some red, and add some clarity, and add some brightness, and add some contrast, and I'm just kind of doing this fast, but I've lost my entire sky. Well, that's okay. If I hit shift, my open thing now becomes an object, open object. So I open it up as an object. And here's the great part. So now I have this object, this file open as an object, right? So if I just copy it like this, and I make any change, and I go back, and it'll go back into the camera, and I make any changes, it'll change them both. But you also have an option of control clicking on here to get this dialog box, and you can new object via copy. And what that does is it creates a new smart object, exactly like the one you have, but independent of the last one. So now what I can do is I can go back to, I can double click it, and it'll take me back to my camera raw, and I can, well, I'm going to reset my settings. Reset. So I'm going to go back to where I was, and now I'm going to expose and work on the camera raw for the sky. So I actually want to underexpose it a little bit, but I want to brighten it, I want to contrast it, I want to add some blacks, I want to add some fill, I want to add some saturation, some clarity. So, and again, I'm doing this quickly. I would probably spend a lot more time here. Maybe I want a cooler sky, you know, to show a little magenta in my sky. Okay, so now I have this. So now again, I hit OK, because it's already a smart object. Basically, I'm opening up a smart object. So now I'm saving my smart object, and it saved that smart object in this layer, but it saved the other smart object in the other layer. So now what I can do is I can make a mask and just make a mask of the bottom part. And now what I have is a file where I have exposed where I have the top file for my sky and the bottom file for my ground. It's not HDR. HDR would do something similar to this though, but that's kind of the effect I'm trying to get. And I do this all the time because I don't like HDR that much. Just don't like the way it looks, but this way I can control every aspect of it. And I mean, if you wanted to come in and take this foreground piece right here and do its own thing, again, you could layer via copy it and then change the settings for that, and you could really work in Camera Raw with smart objects. That's my other big use of smart objects. Now there's many other uses. If you can bring in vector objects, you can bring in from Illustrator, you can bring in a vector object from Illustrator and it'll stay that way. And then let's say you have a really complicated Illustrator document with tons and tons of layers and masks and vectors and stuff, and you bring it in as one piece, and you bring it in as one piece, you can always go back and you double click it, it'll open back up in Illustrator. And it is an amazing thing. The other thing that I want to show you is, let me go back to that gizmo image of the beach. So let's say I bring in this image here, right? And I bring it in as a smart object. Actually, no. Let's say I'm in this image and I'm writing some text. See, because you can create smart objects out of almost anything. And then I'm writing some text, Grand Canyon, right? So I'm going to make it, right, so now with text, you can't really do much to it. You can't add filters, you can't skew them in a very good way, but if you control click on the Grand Canyon and you hit convert to smart object, now you have the option of skewing, scaling, twisting, warping, all your filters, all your transforms that you can do to a regular bitmap image, you can do to this, even though it's clean type. You can even add filters. You can blur it. Oops. You can blur this file. Normally blurring a file, you lose your actual file. So now here, it actually creates what's called smart filter. So you can always go back to your Gaussian blur. And let's say, okay, I like the way this looks, this blur looks, but I want it to say something different. Well, you can double click on that file, on that smart object, and it'll open up this still as live type. So you can type in, Cliffside 2011. Okay, so you can type it in, and obviously you want to fit it in there, and you hit save, and it'll update your file, but with the blurs already applied. So that's what smart objects are. They're really, really powerful, and it's something I use a lot, and I think you should too. All right, well, let's see you next time. Thank you very much.